Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by, and this video is based on the fact that the midnight hour will wipe its way around our planet during the day. Yeah, right over in the Far East, and friends in New Zealand, they're going to get there first, followed by parts of the other Far East, and all our friends in Australia. They'll be doing it while we're still having tea. And then we'll wipe our way across India and across to the EU and the Middle East and Africa and places like that. And sorry, the US, but you're last. We'll have all done it by the time you get there. Strange how that time zone wipes its way around our planet. And while it does that, and you're out celebrating, give a thought to that place. Our planet, yeah, our greed and need for profits is not doing it a lot of good. We can only do our bit, or we can totally ignore it. You know, we can say global warming isn't happening. Dork. You know who I mean. Yes, it is. Basically, it's typified by some pictures I've been looking at of when photography first started, you know, coming into its own, and pictures of the Thames in London, frozen solid, with people out ice skating and people selling chestnuts over the fire on the ice of the Thames. Yeah? Not that long ago. Who can remember the last time that happened? It's not happening anymore. Why is it not happening anymore? The winters aren't as cold. And as a consequence of what we're doing, we're getting more extreme weather. Whether we like it or not, hot places are getting hotter and drier. Vegetation's disappearing from those places. Yeah? We're having to interact more to make use of the resources we've got, and our interactions are not always with the best of intent. If they are driven by profit, they are unlikely to be with the best of intent. It means a lot to me. But all we can do is what we can do. And sometimes you live in an industrial area, and while you're watching all that muck pouring out into our atmosphere, and you've got an economy light bulb, you're doing your bit. But are we really having an effect? If we don't have an effect on a global industrial scale, we're not going to win. Some will say we've already lost. Okay, consequences? Let's have a think what happened in the Caribbean areas this year. Yeah? Is that becoming more frequent? You could put it down to coincidence. I'm not. We are getting a lot more named storms piling in from the Atlantic, causing all sorts of damage. We're getting unusual weather patterns in many places. There are consequences of our actions. Worst case scenario is the polar caps are going to melt, and there's going to be a lot of land underwater. Where people used to live won't be there anymore. We'll all be squashed up into an even smaller space where we'll probably do even more damage and perpetuate the situation. Anyway, on a lighter note, what a year it's been. For me, it's been a good YouTube community year, and that also means a lot to me. You know, we've had family tragedies, we've had personal tragedies, we've had people desperately trying to fight off depression and psychological problems and winning the battle as a consequence of our YouTube community. It's not just about the orchids. Behind all those orchids and those videos are real people, some of whom are struggling, but their orchids help. I may have even been in that situation a few years ago. So yeah, it helps. Successes this year then, and some failures. With a collection this big, you can't have success all the time. You have to accept some failures. The goal is to find out why you had the failure and try not to let it happen again. Sometimes it's just choosing the wrong plant for your environment, and that 9 times out of 10 that's just lack of knowledge. That knowledge is out there, we can all go and get it, it's all there ready to be ingested and help us grow our plants better. Now, I lost an awful lot of my Cattleya collection to Fusarium. That was ignorance on my part. I didn't know I had it. Once I found out that I had it, I could just see it. Wherever I looked, I thought, oh yeah, that's another one. Oh, and another one. And then I actually, digging, finding out, I found 2 sources where all of those plants had come from. So I'd brought it in. I didn't suddenly catch it. I bought it in, and the lack of knowledge meant it got a hold on quite a lot of plants, and I lost a lot of Cattleyas. Well, I'm building that collection back up again because they're a type of plant I like. You know, and we've had some successes. If you think about those 2 sticks of Cattleyas that were just lying around with no roots on a shelf for 6 months, and they did absolutely nothing. Well, now they're doing something. Yeah, we've got a new growth with some new roots on that one, and the other one, which I can't actually get at the moment, that one up down in there has got a new growth. It's not a strong new growth, but it's got some roots down in the pot, so they have a chance of success, which they wouldn't have had if I hadn't dealt with the problem. A little set of new Cattleyas along by the glass there, new acquisitions. They all seem to be coming on nicely, and yeah, so we're replacing a lost collection. Some of them were fine, but quite a few weren't, and they're now under the hedge. I don't want to count up how many plants have gone under the hedge this year. I would rather look at the new acquisitions, some replacements, some new stuff. You know, I killed a lot of Zygopetalums. I now have 3 that seem to be doing okay. I mean, this one's going to lose its last spike in the not too distant future. I can then concentrate on the plant and little things like that. Yeah, get those new growths going. And just think about the plants. I think my worst set is my Oncidium type intergenerics. For some reason they don't do as well. And looking back and analysing why, in some cases, not all, the fear of repotting set in. Yeah, well, that fear is going to get wiped away this year. In this coming season, I will take extra care of when something was last repotted and what it was repotted in. If it's in large chunky bark and it was repotted during this year, then it can stay where it is for a while. However, if it was repotted in the small Orchiata bark with quite a percentage of sphagnum moss, it will deteriorate faster. And rather than let it get to the state where it is causing a problem in the pot, get it out, replace the media. It's the downside of having organic media. There will be a need to repot. And it's getting the timing right. I've made a lot of notes this year on the point at which the new roots start growing, depending on the state of the plant. I mean, Cattleyas play games with us. Some of them produce the new roots just as the new growths come out. Yeah. Some of them, the pseudobulbs, are almost mature before the new roots come out. And some of them don't produce new roots until well after the bulbs have matured and possibly even blooming. But it's knowing when those new roots are going to come and timing a repot, if required, at the best possible time, which is when the new roots are growing. The time of year is less important in my book. Yeah. I've just repotted one in the middle of winter. Well, I wouldn't normally do that, but you know, there will be emergency repots, new purchases where you get home, you water the plant for the first time, stick your nose in the top of the media and it smells of mushrooms. Get it out. If you let your root system deteriorate badly, you have a recovering plant, and some don't recover quickly, so you struggle. And struggling is what takes the edge off our hobby. You could call it a challenge. In this new year, call it a challenge, not a problem. It's just a mindset. some successes. I've got Latoria dendrobiums. First time this year. I've been after them for 2 years. Well, I managed to get some this year. And so far I've got 3 in bloom. This one's still at it up here. Love it. You know, first cane that bloomed had 1 bloom. Next cane's got 2. Maybe we'll get 3 next time. Got another little one down here out in bloom at the moment. And one that's just finished. So the Latorias don't look bad. I'm quite pleased. And I was on a winner, quite honestly, listening to other people that grow them, like T.D. Moore and people like that, and looking at their environments. I was thinking, I should be able to grow them. Some people even told me, you should be able to grow them, Roger, get some. So I did, and they're doing well. I've got my first and only Cymbidium to bloom, and that had no care at all. That got thrown out in the garden. But we've got 2 nice spikes, so these will be, I won't say the first ever Cymbidium blooms, because I did have one a while ago, and it did bloom. And basically it was a piece off of the chairman from my Orchid Society. It was a piece off of his large specimen-sized plant, because I admired it at a show, and he said, I've got a bit of that you can have. So yeah, I tried it for a while, but it took up an awful lot of space, and I haven't got a good environment in this grow room to grow most of the Cymbidium types. There are some warm growers that like humid atmospheres, but they're big and they take up so much space for one plant, so they're not for me. But I'm pleased I managed to get this one to bloom. And yeah, I mean, I'm obliged to keep this plant because it has a memory with it for my daughter. My Vandas have done okay. Most have bloomed several times. I've got one monster up there that decided not to bloom this year. That may be somebody else's plant during this year because it's so big, and basically the blooms are the same as that, same size, same patterning, but pink instead of that nice purple colour. So they're not my favourite blooms either, so I think that plant may move on to other people. See how we do. All my twinkles have done well. Out of my oncidiums, they're the ones that just seem incredibly vigorous. And I've got Miltonia Sunset, Shelob Tolkien, Peter Comp, vigorous growers, doing great. And a lot of the reason they're doing great is they didn't have bad roots when I got them, and I repotted them at a time suitable when new roots were coming out. And again with oncidium types, some of the new roots come out with the new growths. Sometimes you have to wait till the bulbs are almost mature before you see those new roots, and knowing that helps with the repotting. My cool growers, they're doing well at the moment. I've even got a Masdevallia that's going to bloom any minute now, but not yet. I'll film it when it does. So my cooler growers have managed to get through the summer heat and survive, and that's all they do in that summer heat. They survive. They live, and as long as they live through that, come the autumn, they start doing well again, right through until late spring, early summer when they slow down. So they've got the opposite effect. I haven't got a cool growing environment. A lot of the UK growers have specialised in the cool growers now because they can't afford to keep intermediate temperatures going through our winter in a greenhouse, a separate entity. Now, I get away with heat in here because I'm attached to the house and I can open this door and nick some heat from the house. So I get cold and the plants get warm. Yeah, that works well, doesn't it? But yeah, overall I am pleased with what's going on out here, looking back over the year. Things to look forward to next year. Resting type dendrobiums blooming for the first time. And that's a threat. Are you lot listening up there? You can't have a better rest than you had this year. So if you don't bloom this time, you will be in somebody else's collection. You've had your chance. And that is something for the new year. It's analysing each plant, when it blooms, how it blooms. Do I really like those blooms? Do they only last a short time and only happen once a year? And think about perhaps moving some plants on and getting some new ones in. So a sort of wiping effect in the grow room where some, they come in one end, they stay a while, and they go out the other end. Yeah? And some come in one end and they'll stay forever. And that's what I'd like my grow room to consist of, is those that are not going out the other end because I didn't do my homework and I didn't check. You know, I mean, there are some blooms that literally are produced once a year and last like 10 to 14 days. So that plant is not really earning its keep. If the plant itself is special and attractive and I just like it, then it can stay. But otherwise, those can move out slowly but surely. So things to do. The other thing I'm going to try and do this year is more spotlight videos where I pick on either one or a small set of plants and go out, just literally go over everything I know about those plants, you know, where they come from, their elevation, temperature ranges, how I look after them through the seasons, all that sort of thing. A few spotlight videos now and again. They seem to go down well, and why I don't do more of them I can't explain. I just don't. But I'm going to try and do a few more of those as we go through. Now there's something going on that I haven't got my head round yet, and it's a community thing again, and I think it's come from what's the channel now? I've only got it in a comment. I think it's Tropical Plant Party, but it's basically everybody looking back and doing a review of the year, their orchid year, and make a video about, you know, some successes, some failures, and, you know, looking forward to the next year. And the idea is to include some personal stuff if you choose to do so. Not everybody does. There's not a lot of personal stuff in my videos because I'm not that sort of person. Yeah, my videos are about the plants. In the main, there will also next year be some field trips, as there was last year. I started doing that. They seem to go down well. I'll be searching out some of our native orchids and filming those and the environment and the settings where I find them. You know, we've got woodland ones, we've got downland ones, we've got coastal cliff ones. Remember that one at the beginning of the year, looking out for the early spider orchid and getting me wig blown off and me lunch blown out my hand and nearly sitting on the little blighters because I hadn't seen them yet. So, you know, we'll get out, we'll do some field trips, we'll find some of our rarer butterflies and, you know, some naturey things as well, just as a sort of change. And I'll still put the odd bonsai video up as well. And who knows, I may think of some new subjects, but yeah. One thing I will say was a miserable failure, and all my own fault, was my Tolumnia collection. I had 15. I now have 9. Or should I say 8? Or should I say 7? Because I've got 2 up there that really don't look like they're going to make it. And it's no good putting a bloom up. You need to put in... Ah, look at that. I was just going to say you need a new growth. There it is, right at the base. There is a new growth. That one might make it. I'm not so sure about that one. That really is dehydrated, and it's so bad if it doesn't get a new growth going soon, then it isn't going to make it. But the others aren't doing too bad. So, you know, we have some successes. And that was just me not wanting to use the stronger chemicals. I had a serious outbreak of scale on the Tolumnias. Some other plants as well, but the Tolumnias got hit hard. The scale get in at the base of the leaves and chew them off, basically. So you get leaf fall and you get damage to the new growths as they're trying to break out, and I lost quite a few because I was using wishy-washy solutions that didn't kill the blighters. And once I got onto the stronger stuff, reluctantly, I got rid of the scale. You know, so think back over the YouTube channels and the effort that goes in, you know. Some people may only post once a week, but there's still an effort involved in doing the videos. And keep the comments coming. It's what supports the channels. You know, if you post a video and 2 weeks later you've had no comments, you've got nothing to do. You know, you've got no questions, you've got no replies, you've got nothing like that. And I treat my channel as my job. My orchids, my orchid societies, going to the shows, that's my hobby. But my YouTube channel I see as my job, and part of that job is to acknowledge people's comments, and if people ask a question, try and provide a good answer, a detailed answer. It takes time, but I do enjoy doing it, so I'm not knocking it. So as this year comes to a close, let's all think back on our successes and failures. Anybody who's thinking back thinking, well, I haven't had any failures, well, think yourself flipping lucky then. Because we all get them now and again, you know, and we just have to deal with them. It's part of the hobby. But concentrate on your successes and, you know, treat things as a challenge rather than a problem. You know, I've seen people really struggling with pests and stuff like that. It is a pain in the whatnot. But there are ways of dealing with them. And in my opinion, the best way to deal with pests is hard and fast. So no wishy-washy homemade solutions and stuff like that. Just get the proper stuff, get it in there, dead. And when they're dead, come back later and do it again in case you miss some. That's my objectives. This is going to be a good success for me. Laelia anceps is one of my favourite Cattleya types, and to get two new growths both spiking at the same time, they're just breaking and starting to form their buds now, so I can physically see the buds. It may only be 2 blooms on each spike, it may be 3. Looks like 2 at the moment, but one of the most beautiful blooms. I am so looking forward to that. So a success. Yeah, so overall I don't think I've done bad. I will be trying some new genera next year. Target genera is going to be Draculas. I'm not going to go mad and buy 30 of the flipping things. I will get a couple, and I'll try and get some advice as to which are the which Draculas are up the easy end. I'll start off with those if I can find that information out. So that's a definite. At the moment I can't think of any other genera that I want to move into. So it might be, you know, there's no way I'm ever going to say I'm not buying any more dendrobiums, because they are still the genera I have the most of, and it's not finished yet. I will still see the odd one, research it, long-lasting blooms, preferably fragrant, and I'm not fussed anymore whether it's a winter resting type or not. You know, the one thing I do need to avoid is some dendrobiums are cool growers. They come from high up the mountains. Well, they're not going to do as well here. So I can avoid those. But it's finding out first is important. So everybody have a good reflection on their orchid year. Yeah, as this year comes to a close, have a think back. What have you done different? What have you done the same? Yeah, what's working, what's not working so good? And in that not so good area, think about how you can change things. Sometimes it's only a small change. Sometimes it's nothing more than moving a plant from in the middle of the shelf to the edge of the shelf to just get that little bit more light. And sometimes it's the opposite, moving it back a bit because it's getting too much. That's not that often in the UK. You can get sunburn, but it's not often. You don't get a lot of sun. But, you know, think about your environment, think about the orchids you buy, try and get the ones that are best suited, that you may already have some of that are doing great. So a couple more of those won't be bad, will it? And think about our environment, and yeah, we can't do our bits as individuals to any great extent, but there's a saying, every little helps. So don't actively take part in things that are destroying our world if you can avoid it. And it's not always possible, I know, but let's think about where we live and try and preserve it for as long as we can. Hopefully longer than I'm around. But, yeah, and have a great new year. Enjoy your celebrations. I shall be in bed before midnight because New Year doesn't do a lot for me. But I can enjoy some New Year's celebrations on the news in parts like Australia, because they'll be happening early evening in the UK. So I can watch a bit on the telly, you know, get a bit of enjoyment from the firework displays, knowing that my cats won't be enjoying the fireworks that are going to go off round here. They'll be frightened to death, but they'll get over it, and hopefully it'll just be one day. There weren't any last night, I'm surprised. It's probably because it was wet. Because fireworks in this area seem to take place, well, just for any reason at all. And we do get quite a few popping off, you know, frightening the life out of the people's pets and stuff. But enjoy your celebrations, have a reflection on your year. You know, actively do it. Think back and think, was this a good year? And if not, what can I do about it? Have I got a lot of successes? Pat yourself on the back. And let's have more of it. Let's have more enjoyable videos in the new year. And enjoy your orchids. That's all I can say. You know, if they're there as a chore, then perhaps you need another hobby. I get so much pleasure out of growing my orchids, taking part in the orchid societies, going to the shows. It's a major part of my life. And my YouTube channel sits alongside it now. Yeah, I don't think of it as a little thing I do in the background. It sits alongside the hobby. But I do treat it more as a job. And yeah, Happy New Year everybody. Enjoy your orchids. Happy growing, and see you in the new year.